You were pregnant and hid it. The Alpha King got a message 9 months after the divorce. The sea below crashed endlessly, echoing the storm that had long raged within Kale's heart. He had ruled for years with strength and sharpness, feared by allies and enemies alike. His crown was heavy, not with gold but with responsibility and old regrets. It had been 9 months since Selene, the woman who had once held his heart, left him. Their divorce had been bitter, filled with words that cut deeper than any sword. Kale had thought he was done with her, thought he could bury the past along with the ashes of what they had been. Yet that morning, as the sun struggled to break through the gray clouds, a message arrived that would shatter his carefully built walls. It came as a soft glow in the middle of his war chamber, hovering like a flame but without warmth. A scroll formed from shadows and moonlight, and when Kale touched it, the words burned themselves into his mind. You were a father and you did not know it. His hand trembled. The letters shimmered, then vanished, leaving only the echo of their truth. 9 months had passed and Selene had hidden something from him, a child, their child. Kale's chest tightened, and for the first time in years he felt the cold emptiness of uncertainty. The castle seemed to respond to his turmoil. The torches flickered violently, shadows twisting across the walls as though whispering secrets. The halls were silent, yet Kale could almost hear the echo of a child's cry. He clenched his fists, his mind spinning. How could she have hidden this from him? Why had she not reached out? And yet, a strange warmth stirred inside him, a tug of longing he could not deny. He left the chamber without a word, stepping into the vast corridors where memories seemed to linger like ghosts. Each painting, each carved statue, reminded him of the life he had built, alone, commanding, unyielding. And yet the thought of a child of his own blood, changed everything. Meanwhile, far from the castle, Selene moved silently through the ancient forest that bordered the kingdom. Her life had become one of shadow and caution. She walked barefoot on the moss-covered ground, her cloak blending with the twilight mist. Every step was careful, measured, for danger lingered in the air like a predator's breath. She carried her secret with her, a treasure and a burden, a small life that depended entirely on her vigilance. Selene paused by a stream, the moonlight reflecting in her hair. She lowered her head to listen to the soft breathing beside her. The child slept, wrapped in a blanket she had woven herself, warm against the night. Selene's heart ached with a mix of love and sorrow. She had hidden the child to protect them from Kale's enemies, from the shadowy forces that would exploit his bloodline. And she had hidden it from Kale, too, because she could not bear the thought of his anger, his disappointment, his pride. Yet she could not deny the longing that stirred within her when she thought of him. 9 months of silence, 9 months of watching the child grow while her heart ached for the man who had once been her world. And now she knew he would come. She had always known he would come. The first sign of his presence was subtle, a ripple in the air, a faint disturbance among the trees. Kale's arrival was never quiet. Even the forest seemed to recognize the Alpha King, its creatures scattering, its shadows bowing to his power. Selene's pulse quickened. She felt the tension in the air, the brush of wind carrying a familiar, dangerous scent. Kale entered the forest with the confidence of a predator, his dark cloak sweeping over the fallen leaves. His eyes, sharp and stormy, scanned the shadows. He did not call her name. He did not announce his presence. He only moved, every step deliberate, every breath measured. The forest seemed to whisper warnings, yet Kale pressed on, driven by a force he could neither deny nor fully understand. Memories flooded him. Nights of fire and frost when they had loved with reckless abandon. The first time she had smiled at him, the way her hair had caught the sunlight. The arguments, the pride that had driven them apart, the words they had spoken and could never take back. And now the child. Their child, a life born of their union, hidden in the shadows, untouched by his power, yet entirely of him. Selene turned to the sound of movement. Her heart skipped. She expected confrontation, anger, demands. But when Kale finally appeared in the clearing, his presence was not only commanding, it was raw with emotion. His eyes searched hers, a storm held behind steel. "Selene," he said softly, though his voice carried the weight of a king. "Why?" Selene's throat tightened. "I had to protect him, protect the child. You were not ready." Kale's jaw clenched. "Not ready." His voice was low, dangerous, yet beneath it a tremor betrayed his fear. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" "How long I have?" He stopped, the words choking in his throat as he saw the small figure sleeping in her arms. The child stirred, and Kale felt a strange heat rise within him. The tiny hand curled around Selene's finger, and for the first time, Kale understood the depth of what had been kept from him. Rage and longing mingled with an unexpected tenderness. He wanted to scold her, demand answers, pull her close, protect the child, claim what was his, and yet he felt powerless against the emotions swirling within him. Selene stepped back instinctively, as if reading his turmoil. "I did not want to hurt you," she said. "I did not want anyone to take him from me. I had no choice." Kale's eyes softened briefly, but the hardness returned. "You should have trusted me. You should have." His words faltered again. The forest seemed to hold its breath. He could see the truth in her eyes, the fierce love, the fear, the sacrifice. And he could feel the weight of the message, the one that had started it all. You were a father. The air between them was thick with unspoken words, with longing, with regret. Kale took a slow step forward. "Why now?" he asked. "Why reveal this to me after all these months?" Selene's gaze fell to the sleeping child. "Because I could no longer hide him, because the danger is growing and I cannot face it alone." Kale's mind raced. Danger. Shadowy forces. The curse that clung to his bloodline. The prophecy he had ignored for years. All of it collided in a sudden, overwhelming clarity. And yet, through it all, he felt the stirrings of something he had thought long dead: hope and love. He reached out, but Selene did not move closer. The tension was unbearable, like the quiet before a storm. Kale's fingers hovered over the child, over Selene's hands, over the fragile bond of family that had been hidden from him. Suddenly, a rustling in the shadows startled them both. The forest seemed to shift, to move, as if something unseen was watching. Kale's instincts snapped to attention. He stepped protectively in front of Selene, eyes scanning the trees. "You are not alone," he said quietly, his voice steady but sharp. "Someone is here." Selene nodded, gripping the child closer. "I felt it too," she whispered. From the darkness, a shadow moved fast, silent, almost ethereal. Kale's hand went to the sword at his side, yet even as he drew it, the figure vanished like smoke. The forest returned to its quiet, but the threat remained. Kale turned to Selene. His eyes were stormy, filled with both fury and longing. "We cannot stay here," he said. "The child is in danger. We must leave." Selene's heart raced. She wanted to protest, to argue, to run, but the truth was undeniable. Kale had come, driven by something deeper than anger or pride. He had come for them, and now there was no turning back. As they moved through the forest together, the wind carried whispers of magic, of secrets waiting to be uncovered. Kale and Selene walked side by side, a fragile alliance forged from love, regret, and the shadow of their child. Each step drew them closer, yet the distance of months apart clung like a weight. And in the distance, hidden in the mists, a figure watched. A shadow born of dark magic, drawn to the child's power, to the Alpha King, to the woman who had dared to hide the truth. Its eyes glowed faintly, and it whispered a promise. The reunion was only the beginning, and the forest would soon test every bond, every choice, every heartbeat. Kale did not see the shadow. He saw Selene, and he saw their child. And for the first time in months, he allowed himself to hope. But the forest was full of secrets, and secrets had a way of becoming storms. The night deepened, and the mist thickened, curling around them like fingers of ice. Kale glanced at Selene, then at the child sleeping peacefully in her arms, and he felt the pull of something greater than pride, greater than fear. He felt the stirrings of love reborn, tempered by loss, sharpened by longing. The journey had begun, but the path ahead was uncertain. And somewhere in the shadows, the forest waited. The forest seemed alive, though it had no breath of its own. Shadows moved like water over roots and stones, and the wind whispered secrets no human ear could fully understand. Kale and Selene walked cautiously, the child sleeping between them in Selene's arms, wrapped in a blanket she had sewn herself. Every snap of a twig, every rustle of leaves, made Kale's instincts flare. He had faced armies, monsters, and traitors, yet this forest unnerved him in a way he could not explain. Selene kept close to him, her steps careful and deliberate. She had lived in the forest for months, learning its moods, its hidden paths, and its dangers. She had grown stronger, sharper, more attuned to whispers and shadows. And yet, the presence of Kale beside her stirred emotions she had thought long buried. Every glance, every movement reminded her of what they had lost and what they still might have. Kale's eyes never left the trees. He sensed more than just the forest. He sensed the magic that lingered, ancient and unyielding. The message he had received, the child he now carried within his thoughts, and the unknown forces hunting them, all of it converged in his mind, a storm he could not yet control. "This way," Selene whispered, pointing to a narrow path veiled by hanging vines. "It leads to a clearing. We can rest there for a while. It is hidden safe, at least for now." Kale nodded, though his focus remained on the shadows. "Safe," he repeated. "Nothing in this forest is truly safe." Selene flinched at the edge in his voice. He always sounded like that, powerful, commanding, but capable of tenderness if one could reach the core beneath. She had loved that core once, had been drawn to it like a moth to fire. Now it was both familiar and frightening. The clearing opened slowly, bathed in the pale light of the rising moon. Fireflies floated in the air like sparks of hope in the darkness. Selene lowered herself to the ground, careful not to wake the child, and Kale stood over her, surveying the area. Every instinct in his body told him they were not alone. "You can't stay here for long," he said quietly. "They will find you, they will find him." Selene's hands trembled slightly as she adjusted the child. "I know," she said. "That is why I left. That is why I hid him. But I could not do it alone anymore. I needed you." Kale's chest tightened. The words hung between them, fragile and dangerous. He wanted to reach out, to touch her, to reassure her, but the anger, the hurt, the pride, all tangled with his longing, held him back. A rustle from the far edge of the clearing made both of them tense. Kale moved instinctively, placing himself in front of Selene and the child, every muscle coiled for defense. Shadows thickened, bending unnaturally, twisting like smoke. And then from the darkness a figure emerged, tall, cloaked in black, its face hidden. "Kale," the voice was soft, almost melodic, yet it carried a weight that made him stiffen. "So you have returned to the forest, and the child of the child is here." Selene instinctively tightened her hold on the blanket. "Who are you?" she demanded, though her voice carried a note of fear she could not hide. The figure stepped closer, and Kale recognized the aura of dark magic surrounding it. "I am only a messenger," it said. "But some messages cannot be ignored. The child is not safe, and neither of you. The forest has awakened, and it will test everything." Kale's eyes narrowed. "Test us," he repeated. "Do you threaten my family?" The figure tilted its head, almost in amusement. "Threat, perhaps. Or perhaps it is a warning. Only you can decide. The forest does not forgive weakness. Only strength, only unity can survive here. You have been apart for too long, Kale, and now the consequences arrive." With that, the figure vanished into the night, leaving only the echo of its voice and the feeling of cold dread. Kale and Selene exchanged a look, the weight of the warning pressing down on them. "This is no ordinary threat," Kale said finally. "The forest itself is against us. And whoever sent that messenger wants us divided." Selene's hand brushed against his arm, tentative, searching for reassurance. "We have been divided," she said softly, "but maybe we can stand together now." Kale's jaw tightened, but he did not pull away. "We must," he said. "If we fail the child, if we fail, everything we care about will be lost." The night stretched long. They stayed in the clearing, keeping watch over the sleeping child. Kale spoke little, though his mind raced with thoughts of strategy, protection, and the choices that had led them here. Selene, meanwhile, felt a strange mix of comfort and unease. She had longed for Kale's presence, yet the tension between them, the unspoken words, and the danger surrounding them made her heart pound like a drum in her chest. As the hours passed, the forest seemed to respond to their emotions. The wind grew colder, carrying whispers and murmurs through the trees. The shadows lengthened, twisting unnaturally. Kale's senses sharpened. He felt eyes upon them, unseen but aware. "It watches us," he muttered, almost to himself. "The forest or something in it." Selene nodded. "I have felt it for months, but I thought we could hide." Kale turned to her, the moonlight catching the sharp planes of his face. "Hiding is no longer an option. The child has power, magic in his blood, and power attracts attention." Selene's eyes widened. "Magic?" Kale's expression darkened. "Not all magic is gentle, some is dangerous, some is alive, and some is drawn to bloodlines like ours. Your secret kept him safe for now, but the longer we wait, the stronger the threat becomes." Selene shivered. The weight of months of fear, of loneliness, of secrecy pressed down on her. She had borne the child alone, fought shadows in silence, and now, standing beside Kale, she realized how fragile their peace truly was. The child stirred, stretching tiny fingers, and Kale felt a strange warmth surge through him. Despite the tension, despite the fear, there was hope. This child, his child, was a reason to fight, a reason to reconcile, a reason to stand together. Suddenly, a sound broke the quiet, a low, haunting hum vibrating through the earth and trees. The wind shifted violently, and the shadows surged. Kale drew his sword, the steel glinting even in the dim light, and Selene instinctively stepped behind him. From the darkness, shapes began to emerge, figures made of shadow and smoke, moving with unnatural grace. They advanced without sound, eyes glowing faintly, and Kale realized they were drawn to the child's presence. "Stay close," he whispered to Selene. "Do not let them touch him." Selene clutched the child to her chest, heart pounding. "What are they?" "Enemies," Kale said grimly. "Creatures of darkness born of magic and malice. They test strength, loyalty, and courage, and they have found us." The shadows circled, forming a barrier between them and safety. Kale moved forward, sword raised, his aura radiating authority and power. "I am Kale," he called, voice steady but filled with force. "Leave now or face me." For a moment the shadows hesitated. Then with a sound like a sigh, they dissolved into the mist, retreating into the depths of the forest. Kale did not relax immediately. He knew they would return, stronger and more determined. Selene's hand brushed his arm. "We cannot fight them alone," she said quietly. We need allies, people who can help us protect the child." Kale nodded, his mind already forming plans. "We will find them," he said. "But first, we must reach the heart of the forest. There is a place where the child's power will be safe, at least for a time." "I know it, I have been there before." Selene looked at him, hope and fear mingling in her eyes. "And then?" she asked. "Then we prepare," Kale said firmly. "Then we stand together for the child, for us, for the future." As they moved deeper into the forest, the night seemed to pulse around them. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a branch, every whisper of the wind carried both danger and promise. And somewhere, hidden among the shadows, the dark forces that hunted them watched, waiting for the moment to strike again. Kale and Selene walked side by side, the child between them, a fragile beacon of light in a forest filled with secrets and shadows. Their hearts were heavy with fear, longing, and the weight of unspoken words. Yet with every step, a new bond was forming, a bond that would be tested by magic, danger, and the choices they had yet to make. And in the distance, the forest seemed to sigh, as though acknowledging the beginning of a story far larger than any of them could imagine. The heart of the forest was unlike anything Kale had ever seen. Trees stretched skyward, their branches intertwined like the fingers of ancient giants. Mist curled between roots and rocks, thick and silver in the pale moonlight. Strange lights flickered, as if the forest itself breathed with magic. Every step forward seemed to pull the two deeper into a world where time bent and the rules of reality shifted. Kale walked with measured steps, sword sheathed but senses alert. Selene followed close, her hands firmly holding the child, whose tiny eyes sparkled with a mysterious light even in sleep. The closer they drew to the forest's heart, the heavier the air became, charged with power that made Kale's skin tingle. "This place," Selene whispered, glancing around. "It feels alive." Kale nodded. "It is. The magic here is old, older than our kingdoms, older than the mountains. It tests those who enter, finds weaknesses, exposes fears. That is why I brought you here. Only here can we hide, only here can the child be safe for now." Selene's gaze softened. "And us?" Kale hesitated. He wanted to tell her everything, the guilt he carried for leaving, the regret of months spent apart, the longing that never left him. But words felt small against the enormity of what was happening. Instead, he placed a hand over hers, letting their closeness speak. "We survived together," he said. "Nothing else matters." The forest seemed to respond, as if acknowledging his words. The mist lifted slightly, and the path ahead became visible. A narrow trail leading to a small clearing surrounded by ancient stones carved with symbols Kale did not fully recognize. The air hummed with power, and even Selene felt its pull. "This is it," Kale said. "The sanctuary." Selene knelt and placed the child on the soft moss, covering him gently with the blanket. "It's beautiful," she whispered, her eyes wide with awe. Kale scanned the perimeter, alert for any danger. The shadows in the trees seemed restless, watching, waiting. "Stay close," he warned. "They will come. The forest never forgets a bloodline like ours. We are not safe here, only protected for a moment." Selene nodded, gripping the child tightly. The tension between them was palpable, but so was a fragile bond of trust beginning to form again. Neither spoke for a while, letting the forest's silence wrap around them like a cloak. Suddenly, the air shifted. A cold wind swept through the clearing, carrying whispers in a language neither Kale nor Selene recognized. The symbols on the stones glowed faintly, responding to the child's presence. Kale's eyes narrowed. "They are here," he said, his voice low. "The shadow creatures. They can sense power, and the child has more than I realized." Selene's heart raced. "What do we do?" Kale stepped in front of her, positioning himself between her and any threat. "We fight if we must, but first we prepare. The forest responds to strength. We must show unity, and that means trusting each other completely." Selene's gaze met his. For a moment, all the fear, all the pride, all the anger melted away. They had survived months apart, had faced danger alone, had loved in secret. Now they had a chance to stand together. The forest quivered as if testing their resolve. From the shadows, figures began to emerge again. This time they were clearer, tall, cloaked in darkness, their forms shifting like smoke. Glowing eyes fixed on the child, moving closer with silent, deliberate steps. Kale drew his sword, the steel gleaming even in the dim light. "Back," he commanded. "You will not touch him." The creatures paused, then surged forward, faster than the eye could follow. Kale moved with precision, his sword cutting through the air, a streak of silver and shadow. Selene, though untrained, stood her ground, her hands braced on the child, her heart beating with fierce determination. One of the creatures lunged at her, but Kale was faster, intercepting it with a forceful strike. The creature dissipated into smoke, leaving only the faint scent of iron and ash. "Stay behind me," Kale growled, his eyes scanning for the next attack. Selene nodded, though fear still gnawed at her. Yet she realized something vital: she was not powerless. The child in her arms radiated a warmth, a quiet strength that seemed to push back against the darkness. Every time Kale's sword struck, the child's faint glow intensified as if giving them courage. Hours passed in tense silence, broken only by the clash of shadow and steel. Kale moved with unmatched skill, protecting Selene and the child. And slowly, something remarkable began to happen. The shadows faltered. They hesitated, drawn back by the child's growing presence. Kale noticed it and turned to Selene. "He is stronger than I imagined," he said. "And we are stronger together. If we can survive the forest, we can survive anything." Selene's eyes glistened. "We must keep him safe," she said. "No matter what." Kale nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. The child was more than their blood. He was hope, a chance for redemption, a reason to mend what had been broken. As the first light of dawn filtered through the trees, the shadow creatures retreated entirely, dissolving into the mist. Kale lowered his sword, breathing heavily. Selene knelt beside him, holding the child close. "You kept him hidden for a reason," Kale said softly, almost to himself. "But now we cannot hide, not anymore." Selene looked at him, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear, love, and trust. "I am ready," she whispered. "For him, for us." Kale felt a surge of emotion he could not name. Pride, love, longing, and regret all collided within him. For so long, he had believed he had lost everything that mattered. Now he realized that nothing was truly lost, not if they stood together. But the forest was not done testing them. As they prepared to move deeper into its heart, the mist thickened, coiling around them like fingers of silver. The air grew heavy, and Kale sensed a presence more powerful than the shadow creatures, a force older, darker, and more cunning. From the depths of the mist, a voice emerged, low and commanding, vibrating through the earth and trees. "Kale, Alpha King," it said. "You have returned to claim what is yours, but power has a price. Are you willing to pay it?" Kale gripped his sword tighter. "Who are you?" he demanded. The voice laughed, a sound that echoed like distant thunder. "I am the guardian of the forest's heart. I test those who seek its sanctuary. The child is strong, yes, but strength alone does not protect. Only courage, wisdom, and unity can survive the trials." Selene felt a chill run down her spine. "Trials?" she whispered. "Yes," the voice replied. "You will face the shadows within yourselves before you face those without. Only by conquering fear, anger, and doubt can you protect what is most precious." Kale's eyes met Selene's. For the first time, the full weight of their journey hit him. The forest was not just a place to hide, it was a crucible. They would be tested, not only by external dangers but by their own hearts, their own past mistakes. Selene swallowed hard, her fingers tightening around the child. "Then we face it together," she said firmly. "No matter what comes." Kale nodded, his stormy gaze softening. "Together," he agreed. The mist parted slowly, revealing a narrow path lined with stones carved with runes. Each step forward seemed to pulse with energy, and Kale felt the child's presence grow stronger with every stride. The forest's heart was close, and with it, answers, safety, and perhaps even redemption. But the forest demanded a price. As they approached the center, shadows flickered at the edges of their vision, visions of anger, betrayal, and fear. Kale saw flashes of his own pride, his mistakes, the months lost to silence. Selene saw her doubts, her mistrust, the loneliness that had shaped her life. They realized that to protect their child, they must first confront themselves. The trials of the forest were not only battles of strength, but battles of the heart. Kale stepped forward, placing a hand over Selene's. "We can do this," he said. "We are not alone, not anymore." Selene nodded, her resolve firm. "For him," she whispered, pressing the child closer. And as the first rays of sunlight pierced the mist, illuminating the runes and the path ahead, Kale and Selene felt a shift, a promise of strength, a glimmer of hope, and the beginning of redemption. But even in the light, the forest's shadows lingered, watching, waiting. The trials were far from over. The child's cry, soft yet determined, echoed through the clearing, and Kale knew. The true test was only beginning. The forest's heart pulsed with magic, older than any kingdom, older than the mountains themselves. The air was thick and heavy, filled with a hum of unseen power. Kale, sword in hand, and Selene, clutching their child, stepped carefully over the soft moss, each stone and rune glowing faintly under their feet. The forest had tested them so far, revealing dangers and doubts, but now they felt the weight of its final trial pressing down. "You feel it?" Kale asked quietly, his eyes scanning the mist. "The forest, it knows we are here." Selene nodded, holding the child closer. The glow from his small form seemed to pulse in time with the forest's heartbeat. "It's waiting," she whispered, "for us to prove ourselves together." Kale glanced at her, his stormy gaze softening. "Together," he repeated, the word a vow and a promise. They had survived shadows, doubts, and danger. Now they would survive themselves. The clearing ahead opened into a circle of massive stones carved with runes older than memory. At its center, a faint, shimmering light hovered above the ground, surrounded by shadows that writhed and twisted, threatening to spill into the mist. Kale took a deep breath. The final test awaited, and it was clear. Strength alone would not be enough. Selene stepped forward, her fingers brushing Kale's briefly. "We face this together," she said. Kale nodded. "Always." As they approached the center, the shadows surged forward like a storm. But instead of attacking, they took the shapes of their own fears and regrets. Kale saw flashes of the past. Moments when his pride had driven Selene away, nights when he had chosen duty over love, the months lost in anger and silence. Selene saw visions of her own, loneliness, fear, the times she had doubted Kale's care, the nights she had whispered promises to herself that he would never return. The child stirred, sensing their emotions, his tiny glow shining brighter. Kale and Selene realized what the forest demanded. They had to confront themselves, acknowledge their mistakes, and trust one another fully. Kale stepped forward first, facing the shadows of his pride. "I was wrong," he said aloud, his voice steady. "I let anger and pride rule me. I abandoned what I loved most. I am sorry, Selene, and I will not fail again." The shadows shifted, swirling violently, testing the truth of his words. Kale held his ground, steadying his heart, letting the guilt and regret pass through him and out into the forest. Slowly, the shadows recoiled, acknowledging his confession. Selene then faced her own fears. "I have been afraid," she admitted, her voice trembling slightly. "Afraid to trust, afraid to hope, afraid to let love in again. But I cannot let fear rule us. Kale, I trust you. I will face this together." The shadows flinched and faded slightly, unable to sustain themselves against the honesty and strength of their bond. The child's glow flared, casting light over the stones, and the forest seemed to breathe with approval. But the trial was not yet over. From the edges of the clearing, a darker, more powerful force began to rise. A massive shadow, formed from the forest's magic, representing doubt, danger, and the old curses tied to Kale's bloodline. Its eyes glowed red, and it moved with the precision of a predator circling them. Kale gripped his sword. "This is it," he said. "We face it together." Selene nodded, holding the child close. "We are ready." The shadow lunged, and Kale met it with his sword, striking with every ounce of strength he had. The force of the battle shook the ground, and the forest trembled in response. Selene, though unarmed, stood her ground, her presence protecting the child. Every movement of Kale's, every strike, seemed to draw energy from the trust and love between them. The child stirred, his glow intensifying, sending waves of light that pushed against the darkness. Kale realized the truth. The child's power, their bond as a family, and their willingness to face fear together were stronger than any shadow. As the battle continued, Kale and Selene moved as one. He parried and struck, while she whispered encouragement and strength to him and the child. The shadows shrieked and twisted, unable to withstand the combined power of their courage and love. Kale felt exhaustion creeping in, but he did not falter. Seleni's presence, the child's light, and the truth of their bond carried him forward. Finally, with a decisive strike, Kale's sword met the heart of the shadow. A burst of light erupted, pushing back the darkness, and for a moment the forest was silent. The shadows dissolved, leaving only mist and the gentle hum of magic. The stones glowed softly, bathing the clearing in pale golden light. Kale lowered his sword, breathing heavily, and looked at Selene. "We did it," he said, his voice a mixture of relief and wonder. Selene smiled, tears in her eyes. "Together," she repeated, echoing his vow. The child stirred in her arms, reaching tiny hands toward Kale. He knelt beside them, touching the child's small fingers with awe and reverence. The glow from the child spread, illuminating Kale and Selene's faces, and in that moment the weight of months of fear, separation, and regret lifted. Kale stood, looking around the clearing. The forest seemed at peace, no longer a place of trial but a sanctuary. The air was filled with a soft, harmonious hum, a song of approval from the ancient magic. Selene stepped close to him, her hand resting on his chest. "We survived," she whispered. Kale's stormy eyes softened. "Yes," he said, "and now we begin again. Not as we were, but stronger, together, always together." The forest seemed to celebrate their victory. Fireflies danced in the golden light, mist drifted gently, and the stones glowed with a quiet warmth. Kale, Selene, and their child stood in the center, a family reborn amidst the magic of an ancient world. But Kale knew their journey was far from over. The forest had tested them, but beyond it lay kingdoms, rivals, and forces that would challenge them in other ways. Yet he no longer feared alone. With Selene by his side and the child in their care, he felt a strength that nothing could break. Selene looked at him, her eyes reflecting both love and determination. "Where do we go now?" she asked. Kale smiled faintly, the weight of the past months easing. "We return," he said. "Return to the world outside, but we carry this, our strength, our bond, our child, wherever we go." The child giggled softly, reaching out for Kale's hand. Kale took it gently, feeling the warmth of life, hope, and promise. In that moment, all the pain of the past, the loss, and the fear melted away. The future stretched before them, full of possibility and light. As they left the forest, the mist parted, revealing a world waiting to be shaped by their courage and love. The sun rose fully now, spilling gold over the trees, the stones, and the path ahead. The shadows of the past lingered only as memory, no longer a threat but a reminder of the strength they had found in one another. Kale and Selene walked side by side, the child nestled between them, safe and glowing with life. Each step forward was a step into a future forged from love, courage, and redemption. The trials of the forest had ended, but the story of their lives, their family, and the child's destiny was only beginning. The forest, ancient and wise, watched them leave. Its heart had been tested, and it had judged them worthy. Kale, the Alpha King, no longer alone in pride or power, had found something greater: trust, forgiveness, and the light of love reborn. Selene glanced at him, a smile touching her lips. "We face the shadows," she said softly. Kale's hand brushed hers. "And we will face whatever comes next," he replied. "Together." The child giggled again, a small sound filled with promise. Kale's heart swelled. The forest had given them a chance to rebuild, to grow, and to protect what mattered most. And now, outside the shadows, they could finally begin their life anew. The journey ahead would not be easy, but with each other they were unstoppable. The forest faded behind them, ancient and powerful, yet their courage and love would carry forward into the light. Kale lifted his gaze to the horizon, the morning sun painting the sky in colors of gold and fire. "This is only the beginning," he said. Selene squeezed his hand. "And we will face it together." As the three of them walked toward the unknown, a sense of peace and strength filled the air. The shadows had been faced. The past had been acknowledged. And in the light of a new day, Kale, Selene, and their child stepped into a future forged from love, courage, and hope.